Hi, I'm Dawn Marie Solais with EQ Solutions U 2.0, and I am so excited to be speaking to Joy Clausen Soto. She is such an amazing person, and I have to confess, she's also my cousin, so I love her tons and tons and tons. But I'm excited to talk to her because Joy is one of my heroes. I've known her since she was 7 years old and have just watched her go through so many things in life with such incredible grace and stamina and care and love and attention. And so she is one of my top people. She is a mom, she is a filmmaker, dolphin trainer, TEDx speaker, lady after my own heart. And now she's an author. And that's why we're here today, because we're going to learn a bit about her upcoming book that will be released in April. Joy.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
You're never going to get that enthusiastic an introduction.
No, I know that's it. I'm done.
Family does this.
Yeah.
But I wanted you part of this video series because the series is all about helping people find what they need, right? Whether it's a really step-by-step introduction to something, or a hardcore class, or something spiritual, something so outside the box, or like what I got from reading your book, which I'll have you introduce in a second, was just this incredible sense of know your outcome, insist on your outcome, and be grateful for everything along the way, which was just such an extraordinary message. Can you tell us like the title of your book and what made you write and what it's about and all the stuff?
Okay, well, the name of my book is Joy, the story of I have to read it. The story of a dolphin trainer, filmmaker, and cancer survivor. And there's a picture of me up here with a dolphin, and this is my proof, so it has this thing over it. But what I love about this is, first of all, it's an ugly picture of me because I'm underwater with bubbles coming out of my nose. But what I love about it is it just captures a moment of happiness. Just one of those moments
Absolutely.
where I messed up I did something wrong, whatever, underwater, and I started laughing. I have a dolphin right there with me, and it's just this beautiful moment. And it just shows that you can make beautiful moments out of anything in life, whether it's, I had cancer, I had a lot of different experiences in my life, and I was able to find ways to find the good in them and to make something beautiful out of it. And that's why I love that I was able to write this book, because it's taking all of the windy path that I went on in life, and it's making something beautiful out of it, which is what you would do with a movie or a book or a TV show when someone talks about their life. So that's what I've done here.
The story of your cancer journey is such an important one to tell. You mentioned once you found out you had cancer, you went and watched a bunch of movies that were about people with cancer, and like they all died in the end. And that's a truth. That is a truth about life. People die all the time from cancer. But you're like, but people live too. That's a thing. People live. And you decided at some point that you were going to have I lived story, and you were going to document it. That's such, I mean, I know you're a filmmaker, but like that was amazing. Because I'm your family member, I got to see some of those clips during your journey, and or at least photos and stuff like that. So it was just having that insider look into what that's like was just heartbreaking and heart building all at the same time, which I kind of think might have been one of your points for doing it. Can you talk about your reason for doing it?
Yeah, well, what happened was I had just left my job working with dolphins to become a filmmaker. So I drove 3 or 4 miles up north from San Diego to Ventura, and I was going to school at a film school located in that area. And when I found out I had cancer, I asked them if I could just go to school to learn, but not do all the work, because all the work would have been too exhausting for me since I was going to be going through chemotherapy. So I thought it was a no-brainer. I thought they would say yes. And I thought they'd be, proud of me for wanting to still continue learning. But instead they said no. They said there's no way they could let me do that, that I couldn't go to school anymore. And so after being devastated for a little bit, and then I decided to go back home and watch some movies on people who have cancer to inspire me, and instead of seeing all these people who passed away, I thought, well, maybe I can still learn in a different way. I can make a documentary on myself. I'm always available. Slightly adorable. But I mean, I have a subject that's right there. I'm a filmmaker. So that way I can still learn, and I don't have to let this roadblock in my life stop my education. So that's why I decided to make the documentary, but also because of all of those movies I saw. They had these people who died in the end, when I knew that there were millions of survivors out there. And that was a story that I wanted to show, was a story of survival. So I started filming everything. And the great thing about that was that it took my mind off of being sick, and it put my mind somewhere else onto making this film. And this is the outcome of the film. And it, you know, it got us talking about something else. When my friends were over, you know, they could be behind a camera filming me instead of just looking at me and, you know, talking about what's happening all the time. We could be talking about something else. So for me, it was really cathartic to make the documentary. And I'm really grateful that I had the chance to do that. And it's out there, can help people now if they're going through something like this, and they can watch that and see that there is hope at the end of this.
Where can people see that documentary?
It was on my website, and it still is, but I just decided recently just to put it up to YouTube, and I just wanted to give it out to other people, because I don't think that people really know where to find it or anything. So I just wanted to, you know, give that back to the universe and help people that way. So now
okay, we'll link to that. We'll link to that when this goes live so that people can watch that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. You were going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, and now I have the book, which has so much more detail, because I didn't have all of the moments that are in this book in my documentary. So this goes into more detail. And I eventually go and create a program at SeaWorld where kids who have cancer from Children's Hospital Los Angeles, where I was treated, and also Rady Children's Hospital down here in San Diego, could come to the park for a day, get away from it all, and get in the water to meet a dolphin. So I would be one of the trainers in the water with them. And before they get in the water, I'd always let them know that I was a cancer survivor and I had been treated at Children's Hospital too. And so it was just a beautiful thing, because they would start opening up to me and telling me about what they had and what they were going through. And they just had a day away from everything, where they got to just be a normal kid, just having fun with a dolphin. And they would open up and just do things that they haven't done before. And what's interesting about that is my oncologist, my pediatric oncologist, because I was treated at a children's hospital, he said that that actually helps improve their self-esteem, because they've just kind of been beaten down by the cancer so much that these things are needed to help build them back up again.
Well, that's wonderful. You were an adult, though young adult, at a children's hospital. You met some amazing young folks that you journeyed with. Could you talk a little bit about that experience for you? I mean, for myself, because I sort of popped out of the womb wanting to mom everybody, that would have been super hard on me. It would have been even though I would be sick right along with them, it would be very hard for me to see children going through that kind of stuff. What was your experience?
It was hard seeing kids go through that, but it also showed how resilient that they were, because the people who looked like they were going through the most were the parents. They were the ones who looked like they were sick, but the kids, they would just play and make things, and they didn't act like they were sick. So to see that and to see them going through that, first of all, there's no way in the world that you can feel sorry for yourself, which I had been. I've been feeling sorry for myself. Why me? I'm 25 years old. Why is it happening to me? And then you go to a children's hospital and you go, okay, there's no way I can say that now. These kids shouldn't be going through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was this one little girl, Bailey, who I became good friends with. She was 5 years old, and she just became a good friend of mine. I became friends with the family, and we would always become roommates whenever we were in the hospital. So the nurses knew that if we were in the hospital together getting chemotherapy, they would put us together. So the first time that we were roommates, that was the last time I had any other roommate. It was always her after that. and I go to visit her too. So she was someone that meant a lot to me, and I was really grateful to meet her and to be there with her.
That's wonderful. One of the moments in the book that really touched me, and again, this book is going to be amazing for people who don't know you, but I'll tell you, for somebody who does and who knows the relatives that you mention in the book, your Aunt Susan, who is just an exceptional woman and an author in her own right. And one of the things that struck me was you talked about how Aunt Susan seemed to always either know what to do or know who to call who would know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that struck me because not everybody has an Aunt Susan, right? And your first oncologist did not end up being your curative oncologist. And there were a couple of misgivings that you had about them that you talk about in the book. And I know from my own experience, working with different doctors on different things. I've never had cancer, but I've had my own struggles. And patients are not always listened to. They're not always treated as human beings. They're not always, I'm wondering what you might offer to folks as advice if they feel like they may not be getting the care they should be getting. Because in the beginning, you did not get the care, right? And had it not been for Aunt Susan, I don't know, right? I mean, we would have all jumped in there to help you, but what do we know, right? Susan seems to be one of these magical people that just like solutions everything, right? If it's not working the first 10 seconds, she's figuring out the new plan, right? She's this amazing human being. But most of us don't have an Aunt Susan. What do we do when we're not sure we're getting the best care?
For me, I could tell that this oncologist wasn't someone who cared very much about whether I lived or died. She was doing her job, but it was very cold. And I understand you have to do that to a certain extent to separate yourself from the patient so that you don't feel too much for all of these people. But for me, it was too much. And I felt like a number. And I think when you feel like a number, you don't think you're getting the correct care. And that affects you physically too. So, I mean, when you go into something like this or other comparable things, you are putting your life in the doctor's hands, and you are hoping that they have the right solution to your problem and they prescribe the right things. And I didn't feel like that was happening at all. So what I would recommend to anyone who feels the same way is to find another doctor, get a second opinion from someone else. For me, when I went to my other doctor, Dr. Siegel, and I met him, it was a completely different experience. First of all, he knew everything. Not that this other doctor didn't know everything, but he took the time to explain everything to me, which was huge. He didn't seem like he had to get out of there to go to the next patient. He cared about me, and I wasn't a number. I was Joy Clausen at that point. You know, I was a person, and I felt that with him. So because I trusted him so much, I felt confident that whatever he did was the best treatment for me. And even if I died, I was confident that there was nothing else that could have been done because I had Dr. Siegel. So I was really grateful to have that. So if you have a gut feeling, which we all have that gut feeling when we're with someone, whether we trust them or not, as far as being a doctor, then try to find someone else who can give you a second opinion, and maybe you'll like their care better. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. What was the experience like writing the book? I know it took you a minute or two. You were telling me the other day that I think from first words on a page to sending off to a publisher, it was 10 years?
Yeah, it was about 10 years. I started writing it, then I had a kid, then I had another kid. And I had 2 kids that were right there. So I didn't do anything with it for a long time. Then I finally hired someone to go through it and just give me notes. So it wasn't just traditional editing. They just gave me notes throughout the book and a summary of it. So I went through applying all those notes, and I'm publishing this myself. So this isn't going through a publisher. This is
that's great.
Not waiting for someone to bestow that honor upon me. I'm taking matters into my own hands. I'm publishing my book. It's a story that I know anyone who knows me or knows any part of my story loves it, and they think
Yeah.
it's really important to share it with other people. So this whole book came about because I had dinner with a friend of mine at SeaWorld. We went out for dinner one night, and I'm a hermit, so I don't go out very often. But we went out one night.
Now you have
and
kids.
yeah, now I have kids. So, and she started asking me all these questions, and I was able to compartmentalize every story. So I was like, well, this is a story. And I went through all of these different stories, and she said, wow, you should write a book. And I started thinking, well, the way I talked to her, I could do that. Okay. So I started off on my little journey of writing this book. And I was blessed with my work changing our hours from normal hours during the daytime to a late shift where you didn't start till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I used that time in the morning to go to a coffee shop and drink my coffee. Well, it was like chai tea latte or hot chocolate. and write. So, you get a late shift that you don't like, that's fine. Then you have extra time to do other things. And that's what I did. So that's when I wrote the majority of this book, was during that time.
That's one of the things that stands out, Joy, over and over and over again, was you get situations presented to you about your prognosis, diagnosis, all of those things that kind of set you back on your heels. And you find a way to rally. You find a way to bring yourself back to gratitude for what you have, gratitude for the people in your life. And I love the style you've written in. It is very conversational. I do feel like I'm kind of sitting with you having tea and just like in rapt interest listening to this journey of yours. So it's very easy to want to keep reading. I really enjoy the style. But we're going to have to do this part over again because I totally lost my train of thought.
Oh, too bad. It was really good. You're talking about how good my writing was. Really? This is when you forget your words?
I'll say that again, I promise. Okay. Either that or I won't cut this part out because, this is real. This is life.
That's cute.
This is what happens, right? And I do want these to be real and conversational. So we'll see how it goes. But I think what I was trying to go with was you have this way of presenting it in the book where in a way, for me, it went by a little quickly. So it could sound like, oh, well, I'll just be grateful and then I'll live through cancer. Can you talk a little bit more about the challenge it was to have that mind shift, that it wasn't just like, oh, it's hard, but I'll be grateful? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course I was upset and going through a lot of emotions, but what got me to switch gears was I had a boyfriend who I'd been dating before I got sick. And then when I did get sick, he just stopped talking to me. He wouldn't return my phone calls or anything. And so there was one point where I got a hold of him because I was calling from an unlisted phone number, and he hung up on me the second he heard my voice. And in that moment, I felt really angry and upset, and all these emotions flooded through me. And the area where I had the cancer, this area where it had never hurt before, I didn't feel anything. That area started to hurt. And so it was just a moment shift where you have to just go, what? I don't care about this person anymore. This is survival. And luckily I had listened to Zig Ziglar a couple of years before that. And Zig Ziglar had this wonderful story about how he goes to the airport and he finds out only that his flight has been canceled. And instead of being upset or angry at the person behind the counter, he instead says, fantastic. And he goes through all the reasons why it's fantastic that his flight's been canceled. Might be something wrong with the plane, or there might be something wrong with the weather the plane will be flying in, or there might be something wrong with the people flying in the plane. If that's the case, I don't want to be up there. I want to be right down here. Fantastic. And that, for me, 2 years before I was sick, was huge, because it just showed me that you can go through anything that's negative, and it just depends on how you look at it. So you can shift the way you look at things, and it can just brighten up everything. It can lift the fog that is over you. So it was in that moment when my boyfriend hung up on me and I was enraged, that I thought of Zig, and I thought, if Zig can do that in the airport with his flight being canceled, I can do that with cancer. So at that moment, I started listing all of the reasons why I was grateful. I'm grateful they found it at stage 2. I'm grateful that I have friends and family around me. I started listing all of these reasons to be grateful. And so it wasn't that I wasn't upset. I mean, there's definitely moments where I'm upset in the book, but it's just a matter of going to that place of gratitude, which helps you to see things in a different light. Because if you just see all the negative, it's going to be way too hard. You've got to look at the
Yeah.
positive too.
Yeah, and that's a part of the coaching that I do. You seem to, I think in part because you are a Zig Ziglar fan and you had listened to a lot of inspirational, you can do it kind of stuff before this happened to you. And you had members of your family who, really believed, whether religiously or just empirically, that good can be happening at all times, even when really bad stuff is happening. So I think you were kind of a little bit primed to be able to take that ridiculous moment of being abandoned and go, well, never mind. I have work to do. And the work I'm going to do is going to have light shined on it, not a shadow over it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I work with people on these types of emotional intelligence skills, sometimes it's a real challenge. It feels like they're just like closing their eyes to the bad stuff, ignoring the bad stuff, and just pasting a little happy smile on their face. But what the science has shown is that whether it's an elevated attitude or an actual gratitude practice or practice of calming ourselves, when we can quiet down the voice of negativity, not pretend like something bad isn't happening, but that when we can calm ourselves and present ourselves with the idea that a solution is possible, our brains and our bodies become more receptive to the solutions. When we're very clouded and cramped in our mind with negativity, something can be right in front of us and we don't see it because the negativity makes us go like this. It's the negativity that actually blinds us,
Mm-hmm.
not the gratitude, not the calm, not the centering. And so I was
There's physiological changes with that.
right.
Like your blood pressure comes down, you experience less anxiety when you have gratitude in your life. So it really is something that's not just mental, but it creates a physical presence too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a tremendous amount of science behind that. And you had that incredible experience where when your anger and fear rose sharply, all of a sudden you had pain. So you
Mm-hmm.
had that immediate response to, because those types of thoughts actually send chemicals through our body, right?
Yeah.
Those were chemicals that were not going to help you. Your
Right.
body was reacting in a way that was not going to help you. And you were able to have that immediate, like, ooh, okay, this has never hurt before. And with these emotions, I am now experiencing pain. I've got to shift. I really appreciated how much you went back to that idea of, okay, this was hard, but this is the good that can stabilize me. This is the foundation I can stand on.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that was interesting to me that is outside of your cancer story was your willingness to so switch gears when you had your dream job. You were a dolphin trainer at SeaWorld. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
somebody who enjoys aquatic animals, there aren't too many other places one might want to be. Right?
Yeah.
You had,
Yeah.
and I love, you tell how you got there. You tell that story in the book, and I don't want to give away too much of your book beforehand, but it makes reading the beginning of the book a lot of fun and very interesting. But you did stop doing that because you had an additional dream. And you kind of put it that way in the book. Somebody asked you, why would you leave your dream job to go to
Yeah.
film school? And you're like, well, because I have an additional dream and I'm a woman and I can do anything I want to do. And I was like, oh, how joy. Yes, because when I was going through school, there's a little bit of an age difference, possibly as much as it's a decade. I've never really paid close attention to how far apart you and I are.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was in college and I was telling people I was going to be a teacher, and everybody thought I was going to do music or theater or something in the creative arts, they just didn't understand, because that did seem to be a dream of mine, and it was, but I had this purpose-driven dream that I couldn't not do it. Couldn't not do
Mhm.
it. And though teaching in a junior high or high school didn't end up being the way I felt I could do my best work as a teacher, as an educator, became coaching. Um, I realized that, like, when you're designed to do a thing, you might also have other things you're designed to do.
Mhm.
And to have this life perspective that you have to pick one and stick with it no matter what, I'm just not sure that does us good. To
Yeah.
have that freedom that you had and that courage that you had to be like, okay, this was my dream job and not very many people get to do it. And I am just going to say thank you. I love you all. Bye. Can you
Yeah.
talk about that decision, what that was for you? Was that hard? Did it take a lot of like nail biting or?
Yeah, I think I mean, I was leaving a dream job to go live another dream that I didn't know if I'd be good at, or I didn't know what was going to happen with that. It took a lot of guts to do that. But I think that you just have to follow your passion, because that's how I got to where I was with working with dolphins. Was my passion is I had a passion for working with animals, and I loved the ocean, and I loved dolphins. I just all kind of came together. It was perfect. And I loved working there, because I think a lot of times when you work, it's very infrequent that you have this wonderful team of people that you work with. And I worked with the best people, and I had fun every day. It was just wonderful. Like, I was getting paid to do the most amazing thing and to be with the most amazing people. So to leave that was really hard. But at the same time, I'd be at work and I'd be thinking about, okay, when I get home, I'm going to edit this a different way. I'm going to just cut off one frame and, cross dissolve, or, fade to black or whatever. And that's all I'm thinking about all day, is that. So for me, the fact that it took over my thinking was a big indication that that was a place I needed to go to. Another thing was I was out in the sun all the time. So I didn't think it was the best for me, since I'm fair skinned, and I had I don't mention this in the book, but I had a precancerous mole on my back. So I thought, maybe I'm not meant to be out in the sun all that much. So all of these kind of came together to inform me of, this is a direction I should explore. And I've always thought that if you follow your passion, you'll find your purpose. And I feel like that's happened with me in my life. Is as long as I follow something that I'm passionate about, then I find my purpose in that.
That's awesome. Um, eh, depending on people's sense of how the world and the universe works, whether they're spiritual or not, you definitely seem to have a spirituality that gets expressed. You thank God for things in the book. Do you feel like your spirituality was part of what kept you strong through your journey?
Um, I think that always helps to have spirituality when you're going through something like that, because to believe in something bigger than yourself, I think can never hurt you. For me, I remember there was a moment where I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, and I just been through this really rough time, and I'd just been hospitalized. I was rushed to the emergency room, and I sat in my friend's car as she went to go get some stuff for us on our way back, because it was like an hour or so drive. And that's when I did this little video journal where I talk to the camera and I say, I'm grateful to God, whether I survive or not, because I know it's all part of a plan. For me, the reason why I did that was because I wanted to be at peace. If something happened to me, I didn't want to be fighting. I know that sounds horrible, but I
Mm-mm.
just want to be at peace with it. And so I kind of put my trust in whatever's meant to be is meant to be. I'll do my best, but I trust that there is a purpose to this. So it definitely helped me out.
Yeah, I think I'm a very spiritual person. I used to be a very church-oriented person, and am no longer. That's just my journey. So I've embraced a lot of different spirituality concepts and paths. Um, and I also have this, rich background in the psychology studying that I've done. And to me, I think even if somebody is not feeling a spiritual connection or path in their life, there's a way to consider um, the value of an experience and the value of a life. that can be as empowering as a spiritual belief. That somebody does not have to necessarily believe in God or a higher power to think this universe is an amazing place and it has so much good in it. And I can anchor myself in that there, whether or not I believe there are miracles, I can believe in kind of the miraculous nature of how life develops and how, bumblebees fly when physics says they can't. And, just the whole thing. I think even if somebody doesn't have a spirituality, they can take that tack and read your book, just understanding that you are relating to a sense of amazement and miraculousness. You may use the word God, they may not use the word God, but I think you can still relate. I think that the way you present it is very natural and very sincere. And I appreciated that look into who you are through your journey. You weren't careful about it. But you also weren't like, people better believe in God or they won't live through cancer, because there are those books out there.
Okay.
So
I have not read those.
Yeah, there are ways of presenting spirituality that I think can make people feel not included in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you presented it, I felt like by far most people could feel very included in your story. And appreciate the way you went about it,
Mm-hmm.
even if it isn't exactly their reality,
Mm-hmm.
You did some work for Children's Hospital. I think so. I don't necessarily know if I have my facts straight, so I would love for you to fact check the way I think your story happened. The documentary and the promotional work you did for Children's Hospital after the fact, they're not the same thing, right?
I just did for promotional work. It wasn't really, I wouldn't even call it promotional work.
Okay.
I spoke at some fundraising benefits and I put together a video for them, but that's nothing beyond that.
Yeah. I saw the video, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so it seemed like some of the cuts from your documentary made their way into the video.
Yeah, I made that. That was me making
Yeah.
that for Children's Hospital. Yeah.
Yeah. Children's Hospital was a really amazing experience for you. It seems that the whole organization kind of deserves a shout out for a second for the amazing work that they do, the tender care that they take of yes, the children and young adults, but the parents. Like they don't forget about the caregivers and the parents and
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned once again via Aunt Susan recognizing well, through your friend Anne, and then again through Aunt Susan, recognizing this was not just your journey.
Mm-hmm.
This was the journey of everybody. Can you speak to that a little bit? I think it's important that, your story is so spectacular, but that recognition that other people are going through it with you, and how you appreciated some care and were a little needful of, like the sad faces to go away.
Yeah.
How that all worked for you?
For me, I really wanted to surround myself with warriors. I wanted people to be strong around me. So if I had people who loved me around me looking at me with the sad eyes, I had a really hard time, because I was trying to put on this, I'll say front of being strong because that helped me. I like I may have been scared inside, but as long as I was around people, I got to be strong in front of them. And to be strong, I need strong people around me. So if I was strong and then I have someone breaking down at me saying, why you? Why is this happening to you? Which I had sometimes, forget about it. I can't be strong anymore. Then I'm a mess. And I'm going, I don't know, you're right. Why me? So, so for me, I would try to surround myself with the people who could be strong and just talk about normal things. I remember, I don't have this in the book, but I remember I had my friend Frank. He's from SeaWorld. We have a very similar last name. And that's how he came in on the first day of SeaWorld. And he said, are you Joy Clausen? And I said, yes. He said, I'm Frank Clausen. I don't know why I'm using his full name right now, but
he'll forgive you.
And he's like, we might be related. It's not, we're not related. It's like off by a letter. Yeah. But he came up to visit me in Ventura. And I remember him complaining about, because he just had shoulder surgery and I had just had a port put in. So I'm having trouble. Port is where like they give you the medication and stuff. So it's under my skin and I'm trying to put my seatbelt on and I'm having trouble, but he's complaining about his stuff. And I have cancer, I'm bald. I'm like, what are you doing? But for me, that moment of being with Frank actually is a moment I love because I was able to go, yeah, he's going through something too, Joy. You know, it's not just all about you and what you're going through. So that was actually a nice moment. Him complaining about his shoulder when I have cancer.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've actually heard, and you know, I think you have to check in with people because not everybody's built the same. But I have heard from others that when they're going through really tough stuff, sometimes it does them good to just hear somebody else's story for a minute. Like,
yeah,
you know, like, oh my God, could we talk about something that is not me?
Yes. I would be really weak and it would be hard for me to want to entertain people because I was so weak. But at one point I had two of my friends there and they would just talk to each other. And that was heaven for me because I got to have people around. I didn't have to talk to them the whole time. I could just listen to their conversations and that just brightened my day was to have them there talking to each other and I could chime in whenever I wanted to, or I could just sleep and it didn't matter. I didn't have to feel like I was entertaining them. So that was good. And the other thing that I talk about in my book is, and I didn't really think about it that much in the moment, but now looking back, I think about it, was the fact that it wasn't just me going through the cancer, it was everyone around me. So they, you know, it's a trickle effect. It's everyone was affected by it in different ways. Like I talk about my friend Anne and how I went on for, I think I said like 10 minutes, but I think it was even longer than that, maybe 15 minutes, that I was talking to her about everything that was happening. And she said, I'm sorry, can you please stop? Because I can't hear anything. After you said cancer, I couldn't hear anything that you said. And that for me was like the best way of illustrating how it is when someone hears that a loved one has cancer. So it's not just you going through it, it's everyone around you. But in the moment, I have to say, it was all about me. I wasn't really thinking about what other people were going through. I was just trying to get through this myself and survive what was happening to me. Am I selfish?
No, there are two really beautiful pieces about that. One, you had friends in your life that you knew you could call and say everything and they would receive it, right? Because you had that very stark example where the boyfriend heard you had cancer in a voicemail you left him and then never spoke to you again. You know, so not everybody can handle life when it gets spooky and hard. And you know, that is their journey and I don't want to judge it too much, but you did have people in your life that didn't disappear on you. And that did try to figure out how to be the warrior you needed. And just like your very first chapter, I thought it was a brilliant way to start the book. Is, you know, when your two buddies had to take you to the emergency room. And there were many times when you were going through that, Joy, that, you know, I'd hear a little story of what was going on from Aunt Susan or from your mom or, you know, via my mom third hand, you know. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you were making this film, I felt like you had such an important purpose. like whatever was going to be the outcome of the cancer, and of course we were all praying and hoping and sending good energy and all of those things that you recover. But I felt like no matter what comes out of this, joy is creating something that will be useful.
Mm-hmm.
And she's sharing with people unashamed, unabashedly her story. And I just found that courage giving. You know, I met you when you were 7 and the most adorable, amazing little girl. And you were 25 going through this. And, you know, my family love for you, my desire to have you be well was huge. And to opposite sides of the country, I couldn't go see you. I couldn't bring you soup. I couldn't be one of your warriors, right? And just knowing that you were doing the work you were doing while you were sick was very emboldening to me. It was like, okay, if joy can go through all of that and be like, this would be a good time to like roll film. I don't know how you do that. I'm really, really sick, but I'm going to do a video journal now. Or I'm laying down on a bench, but I think somebody should take film right now, right? It's just like you still had your filmmaker brain going kind of no matter what was going on. I just like, oh my God, I can't complain about anything. I can't think anything's hard. Joy is my hero. You were a TEDx speaker. Is that available out there online? Can we link to that?
Yep.
I want to like
Absolutely.
link to everything. So if you can give me the stuff that is available for you out on the internet. You mentioned a website. Is that something that's still active?
Which website?
I don't know. You said your documentary was on your website, but you moved it to
Oh
YouTube.
yeah, yes, that's on. It's that website is active. I have a general website that I have for my name, joyclausensoto.com. And so if you go there, it talks about my speaking, and then there's a documentary section which links to my website for the documentary. So it's all right there, but I don't have a link to the YouTube, so you can provide that.
Okay,
Separately.
I will go find that.
Okay.
I will get a link. So good. We will put everything up so people can find you easily and get in touch with you if they need to. Who do you hope will find this book and read it?
I think what people are going to expect me to say is people who are going through cancer, which I think would be great for people to read that because it has a happy ending and it shows what happens or what happened with me afterwards and how I was able to find my way to my perfect ending, even though it was not a perfect journey at all. But what I really hope is that people who are going through a hard time, who don't know what their purpose is in life, who feel lost, I've been there. That's been me in so many different parts of my life of just being lost and not knowing why I'm here and what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was able to find my way in different ways. When I was told I can't go to film school anymore, I was able to make a documentary. When I was told I couldn't have kids, somehow I had kids. So, I mean, I have had so many dreams that have changed over time, and all it takes is persistence and not giving up and knowing that there is hope at the end of the tunnel. So for me, I love this book because it's reading about somebody's imperfect life and a happy ending at the end of the whole thing. So and I have a quirky kind of style, I guess. So you get to go into my quirky world when you're reading this. But for me, that's the biggest thing is the people who are lost in their lives. I think reading this would be really beneficial.
I agree. I really agree. I think that's one of the things that stood out to me. I got choked up when I was talking earlier. I have to take care of a tear. One of the things that occurred to me while I was reading it is that the book will benefit those who are either going through cancer or who are supporting someone going through cancer, but it's really going to benefit additionally, people who need a story of somehow how somebody did a thing.
Yeah.
That that is digestible and personal and approachable. You're very friendly in the way you write. You're very open and generous in the way you write. And so I think just about anybody could pick up your book and feel invited. There's sometimes I reviewed a bunch of books. I have a bunch of books on my shelf that have that stripe across them. Not for resale, right?
Right. You get that copy.
Pre-publishing copy, right? I have a lot of those. And so, it's not that I don't necessarily enjoy the book, but I'm a very intellectual person, so I can handle the kind of stuff that just isn't necessarily interesting, but even with the way I'm built, sometimes I get into somebody's story, I'm like, I just, for whatever reason, gosh, I can't hang in there with you. I just, like, I know you're trying, but how you're presenting it is just like, I just can't hang in there with you, which makes me feel very sad. But that wasn't the case. And let me tell you, I was scared, Joy, because I love you, and I didn't want to be like, well, it was a good book, and people, right? So I started reading, like, oh my God, it's good! Yay! Thank you. I'm sorry. Like, I actually want to read it. I would have read this book, like, if I picked it up off the shelf at Barnes and Noble and started, I would have been like, ooh, I have to buy this now because I've read the whole thing while I'm standing here. I would have read this book no matter what, and that really speaks to I think the heart you put into it, and the sense that I think you were keeping yourself attached to a giving purpose while you were writing the book. This wasn't about self-aggrandizement and sticking yourself into a public space artificially. You've always used your story to help other people from minute one. You've used your story to help other people, and I just find that super inspiring.
Thank you.
We've got like half a second left. Is there anything that you feel like we haven't talked about or would like to say to people listening, or anything like that you just want to, like, wrap it up? Little tidbit for the world.
A little tidbit for the world.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that
the pressure
impressive.
Isn't great now. I think the tidbit for the world is my tidbit for the world. I think what I'd like to say to anyone who's listening to this is that, we go through hard times. We are in a once in 100-year pandemic right now. So the majority of the world is going through a hard time, but there is a way to make it out of this and to be whole and to make something beautiful out of it. And just to not give up, because there's always light at the end of the tunnel. So just don't give up, and perseverance is the biggest thing in life. Just don't give up, keep going, find a way. The door is locked, don't worry about that, because there's a window over there for the basement. You're going to get in somehow. So just
a sledgehammer, that's always my approach.
Always like knocking but I mean, there's a way. So just find a way, and it may not be the way that you envisioned, but there's a way to find success in life.
Awesome. Thank you. You did very well with your tidbit for the world.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Tidbit.
All right. We will post links and a little bit more about Joy as this video goes live. Just look for all of that, and then you can certainly Google Joy Clausen Soto. Get her book. Now, the release date is April 6th. April 6th. Yay. That's adorable. Definitely get her book. It's so worth it. Buy a bunch so you can give it away to friends and family. This is an inspirational piece that's going to have a shelf life for sure. I love you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for honoring me with this video chat. And hopefully we can talk again soon, just like this, after the book has gone out there, and we can find out how it's doing and who's being blessed.
Okay, that sounds great. Great. Thank you.
Alrighty, you bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.